Hello and welcome to this wonderful conversation that we have with Dina Jensen. Now, Dina is a healing guide, hypnotherapist, tea witch, and intuitive empath who flew in from British Columbia, Canada, and just spoke to us about plants and plant medicine. And we went down the woo-woo path, which we sometimes do, and tea, which was mentioned, which was really fun to find out where that comes from and what was behind that. And this has just been a really great conversation about nature, about how we can connect with nature in a different way to what we've normally spoken about or spoken about before. And plant medicine is something we've not touched on yet. So great, this is our first episode talking about it and just getting some understanding of it and just learning what it is. So grab a cuppa and just sit back and really enjoy this conversation because Danae has so much enthusiasm for what she's speaking about. So now let's get on with this wonderful conversation.
But before we dive into this inspiring conversation with Danae, I would love to encourage you to check out our newsletter. You can sign up and you will receive only twice a month, every other week, you will receive a newsletter with some of the top tools and insights and stories from our guests. It's a little bit of a digest, a little bit of a summary with wonderful snippets and tips from our guests. So please do subscribe. You will never miss an episode, and you will never miss an insight, and you will never miss a learning. And don't worry, we will not spam you. It's coming out only every other week. So please do subscribe to the newsletter. The link is down below. But now let's go into this wonderful conversation. Hi Danae, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great, Lenka. Thanks for having me.
We are absolutely excited to have you here. Thank you so much for waking up quite early on your end to join us and have this conversation. So, to get us started, could you give myself, Natalie, our viewers and listeners, a little bit of a context, a little bit of an introduction, who you are, what you do, what lights up the fire in your gut, in your heart, in your soul every day, guiding you on this exciting journey that you're on?
Absolutely. So I call myself a soulful healing guide, and I help people, mainly empaths and sensitive people, to learn how to live a joyful and blissful and fulfilling life. Because oftentimes in these polarized times, it can feel like a very prickly society to live in, especially for people who are very sensitive. And for me, I came about this work because, well, I suffered from depression for most of my adult life. I'm going to say 15 plus years. And at the time, I really tried all the time to manage it, and I was a very high functioning depressed person. So I had a very like fast-paced, high-pressure job in the corporate industry. I was a financial analyst, and I was in a long-term relationship, and I had two children, and I had a home, and everything looked like, very, very nice life, right? But on the inside, I was always spiraling into this deep depression that would sometimes take me 3 or 4 days to get out of. And so at some point when I was pregnant, I started to teach, or I took hypnosis for to have a comfortable childbirth. So I learned how to have a comfortable childbirth using hypnosis. And to me, that felt like pure magic. And I decided to go down that path and learn how to teach other women how to have comfortable births too. And so that was my introduction into sort of the world of altered states of consciousness. And then finally, one day, I decided, like, enough is enough with this depression. Let's get to the root cause of it. And I went on a psilocybin healing journey with a dear friend of mine, a very gifted healer, and my whole life just changed. I broke free from that detrimental pattern and decided to dive in to help others do the same. So that was sort of the synchronicities and the path that led me to where I am today. Mhm.
Thank you so much for this introduction. There are a few things that really immediately resonate with me, and that's the quite common combination of being empath, highly sensitive person, and having clinical depression, having quite sensitive soul, having lots of negative thoughts and being so sensitive to the world and spiraling, and at the same time being very well performing, being high functioning. So I don't think, this is just you. I can see this pattern repeating in so many people around. From your experience, could you kind of help us shine a little bit of light on why do you think that it happens quite commonly in our society today, in the people around us, that so many, especially empaths and highly sensitive people, end up struggling with depression, end up suffering with their mental health, probably more than anyone else. And yet, from the outskirts, when we look at possibly their career, their professional life, they will be highly productive, they will be successful, and we will not, on the first glance, be able to tell that they have so much struggle every day just to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot to unpack. Yeah, but I think it starts very young. It starts when we're children, and we learn very quickly that society sees sensitivity as a weakness and that it's not okay. It's not okay to feel all of these feelings so deeply. And, it starts with our parents telling us, to stop crying and that kind of thing. Or later on in life, people saying, "Oh gosh, you're so sensitive," and we don't want to be that way, right? So we hide and we learn to perform and mask at a very, very, very young age. And we learn to muster the energy, right? We learn to muster and to perform and to just be who people need us to be, right? And so we do, right? And on top of that, we have all of the conditioning that comes in society of saying, okay, this is what success looks like. Like you get a good job, you get married, you get a house. Like this is what you do. And we don't all fit in those boxes, but we continue to perform and perform and perform. And for me, my depression was actually a very wise response. And it was saying, don't you dare, don't you dare take one more step down this path. Right. It was pumping the brakes. And it just took me that long to listen. Right. It took me that long to realize that I have strayed so far from my true self that my system is literally shutting everything down. And so I tried to power through. I tried to fight it. I tried to force it. I tried to be tough, which is really ridiculous if you know me, right? Because I'm not at all. I'm super duper duper sensitive. But I found that the trick, which is kind of like not intuitive, is to actually embrace sensitivity. And when I started to embrace my sensitivity and step into who I actually truly am and realize that there's no other way that I can be that is good for me, so I better learn how to take care of my actual self, who I am, everything changed. And I was no longer impacted by being a sensitive person. So I learned to love it. And then it didn't matter if people were like, "Oh, you're too sensitive." I'm like, yeah, I am sensitive. Thank you.
It's incredible how much masking can take a toll on our health and well-being and our self-image, and what coping mechanisms then will come from the woodwork, from our inner self, to kind of push us to, as you said, break through the labels and the stigmas. And for girls it might not be even as hard to be labeled as sensitive than if we look at, for example, our male counterparts. For them to be empath, for them to be sensitive, for them to be a gentle soul who feels and who cries and who empathizes with people and showing those emotions, that can be really hard in our society, where we still have this alpha male, toxic masculinity, really rah-rah, strong, aggressive perception of what a real man is, and real boys don't cry. So I think it's very interesting when you said that, the moment you learned to embrace and love yourself and accept yourself and fully show yourself, you learned that the depression was almost like a tool that you've used as a masking process to not show this side of you. That's an interesting perspective on it. And if we can stay a little longer on your journey and healing from depression, I love that you mentioned that you went on psilocybin, because that seems to be a newly rediscovered tool that even now the more traditional pharmacology and the Western medicine is learning to embrace a little bit more. And obviously it's been known for years, and influencers and big celebrities, even like Tim Ferriss, will talk so much about how much it helped them and how life-changing it was. But I would love to know a little bit more about your experience, because for many people this can still be pretty much out there as, it's drugs, it's altering the consciousness, it's not safe, it's experimental. There could be lots of negativity and labels around it, and yet more and more science is proving what, again, we know from ancient medicine, healing, ancient wisdom, that this is natural compounds that we're only now tapping into for healing purposes.
Yes, absolutely. So when I first decided to go on a psilocybin journey, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I did not know what to expect. I knew that I had had enough and I was done like managing my depression, and it was just time for a change. It was very, very, very crucial that I trusted my guide. Okay, so the woman who I did my journey with was somebody who I knew and I felt very safe with, and I knew that she would not let anything, kind of bad happen to me. So I think that is very, very, very important. I have had friends try to do this kind of healing journey on their own, and I really don't recommend that. Like taking a dose of psilocybin for fun is very, very, very different than taking a dose of psilocybin for healing, because the mushrooms work so well with intention. And so when we step into something like that, it's very important that we do it with reverence and with the understanding that the plant medicine is a tool to help us uplift and get out of these old stories. So it elevates us up out of it. And sometimes that touches on some very deep traumas that we need somebody there to help guide us through. So that's my role when I'm helping the people who come to me. But my own experience was I was terrified at first. And I remember the feeling of the psilocybin hitting me and thinking, I just want to dive in. How do I jump off this cliff? That was like literally the thoughts in my mind. How do I jump off this cliff? How do I dive deep down into my trauma? Because I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to get to the bottom of this. And it was actually pretty funny because I remember laying on the bed with the eye mask on, feeling the effects and having these thoughts. And then all of a sudden it felt like the ground came up and hit me in the face. And I was like, oh, I don't have to jump off the cliff. The ground is going to come up and meet me. Right. And then the journey started. And my journey was it was extreme. It was 11 hours, which was very unusual. Most of the journeys that I guide people on are like 4 to 5, maybe 6 hours. So mine was a lot, and I appreciate my guide for that. I had a beautiful journey where the thing that I remember most was being able to explore the depth of emotion. So I experienced emotion as a color spectrum in my own personal journey. And I was able to traverse the spectrum and really go all the way up to the light part of the feelings and all the way down into the depths of the feelings. And I found that all of these emotions exist on a platform of love. So that love itself is not actually an emotion that humans experience, but it's the platform that all of the emotions exist on top of. And I'm not saying that that is the absolute truth. I'm saying that that's what I needed to know in order to heal from the depression. And so that's what the plant medicine, that was a big takeaway for me. And I came out of it realizing that I can feel sad without being depressed. And I can go all the way down at the depths of anger and the depths of grief and the depths of rejection and all of these things. And I'm safe and I'm okay. And it's actually this beautiful, juicy human feeling that I get to experience in this life. And that was, I think, the experience for me that broke the depression. Now, every single journey is different. That was my own experience. And I've never led one that's similar to mine. I've actually never led one that is similar to another.
I love how you describe your emotions and your experience as the color spectrum, and and that the platform is love, the base of the emotions. And I think that is so powerful, because love can almost be this tool that it's used to get one to follow certain ways. And, if you don't do this, you won't be loved. If you do this, you're going to be rejected. And if you're rejected, you're not loved. And I think love is such a powerful emotion. And as you said, it's not an emotion that we really dig deep into. There's this love for family or for partners or for pets or for nature. But when you think about love as a platform, it becomes this, well, a bigger thing, and it's all encompassing but freeing in a way, because there's no agenda to love. There's no strings attached. Well, if you do this, then there's love. Love is just there, regardless of who you are or what you're doing. It's there, and as you said, like this platform. So thank you so much. As you said, in this polarizing climate that we're in world that we're in, love is desperately needed, and love is to really embrace that love. And I don't know if I'm explaining it well, and our poor listeners maybe are struggling to follow this, but it's not just the love that you have for a partner or for your kids, but it's just knowing. It's the knowing, and maybe it's the universe, maybe it's source, maybe it's God, whatever it is. I think it's a personal feeling and a personal journey it's on, but it's this all-encompassing love. So thank you so much for sharing that. And obviously you spoke about the mushrooms and plant medicine. Can you explain a little bit to our listeners, for those who maybe heard the word plant medicine and not really understanding what it is? Can you share a bit more? What is plant medicine, and where do mushrooms fit in that? I mean, we've all heard of taking mushrooms to go and have a journey, but it's more than that. It's not just a drug that you take to escape reality, but plant medicine is much more to it. Can you please share with us and our listeners what it is and how the mushrooms fit into that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Natalie. And thank you for trying to explain love like that too. I feel like in that situation, our language fails us. We don't have the words. Yeah, so that's why it's difficult to explain. So thank you for asking about plant medicine. I actually work with all sorts of plant medicine. Psilocybin is the only psychedelic that I work with, but I actually work with herbal medicine as well. And so for me, the plant medicine that I work with, whether it's mushrooms or pine needles or holy basil or rose, they have a spirit. And we can tap into that spirit and ask the plants for guidance, because we are all connected, right? Because we are all one. And plant medicine is so profound in this way that you don't even have to necessarily consume it in order to even get some benefit from it, right? We can literally just think about it. We can smell it. We can invoke it in some way and get the benefits from it. So for the listeners who are questioning about psilocybin, where mushrooms fit in, as I was saying about intention, like we can consume mushrooms for recreational purposes, right? And to go have fun and that kind of thing. And you're going to have that kind of experience. If the set and setting is good times, then you'll have a good time. It also works very well for healing that way, because if we have the intention to heal childhood trauma, that's actually what our mind's focused on. And the plant medicine comes in and says, okay, here is what you need to know, right? And lays it all out for us. It is a reflection of our own inner world, as well as an elevation up out of ourselves and a connection to that is what is greater than us. But because it's all connected, it's just one, channel, right? We actually have access to this all of the time, but we're so blocked, right? And that's where the plant medicine comes in. It helps to open things up for us so that we have an easeful connection. So just going back, touching on my story again for a moment, I tried to heal my depression on my own. I did about 10 years of like self-help, right? Where I read books and I did journaling and I did mind mapping and I did all of these things all by myself. And nothing worked until I went and did the healing journey. And I think two things, there's two reasons why. First, the plant medicine cracked open the doors. So it felt like all of the work that I had been doing on myself for the past 10 years sort of came crashing through the door all at once because the mushrooms opened the door. It dissolved the block that was in the way, right? And I was able to then start to embody and integrate like 10 years of self-help. And the second reason was healing doesn't happen alone. So I was trying so hard to do it by myself. And it doesn't happen when we do it by ourselves, or at least it happens so slowly that we don't even notice. So I think the other missing piece there is having a witness, right? We really do need a witness to our healing in order for it to happen. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, and really beautifully. And you touched on something is the not doing it alone is having a guide or a mentor, or as your words, a witness. Is quite often we do try it on our own because we feel that we should, or we might not know the right people, or for whatever reason. And yet, yourself, it worked when you had that witness. And a lot of our guests have that person who guides them or helps them. And it's quite often when, we've been on that journey, we then become guides to help the next lot on their journey, who then become guides. And it's almost like a pay it forward type of process. But we are not, as humans, we are individual, we are unique, but we are not alone. We need that connection, that companionship, or that the tribe, whatever words you want it, but we do need to have those others helping us, guiding us, supporting us, witnessing what it is that we're doing. And even on the other side is the accountability and the pushing, and pushing us beyond our boundaries or our capabilities to see how far we can go. So we do need others. So thank you for really sharing that and reiterating to have somebody else with you on the journey, whatever role you need them to be. And in your case, it was having somebody there as a witness to help you to process. And I love how you said that the mushrooms just opened the door and just allowed the 10 years of work that you've done to come in finally. I just pictured, when you open the cupboard door, that kids have chucked everything in and it's like, yeah, I've tidied my room. Yeah, can I open your cupboard door? No. And then you open it and just everything just piles up. That's what came into my mind. It just reminded me of my childhood when I tidied my rooms. Everything was in the cupboard. So thank you for that. And yes, it did answer, and it answered also about plant medicine, because you said plant medicine is so powerful. Is you don't necessarily need to consume it, but you can smell it or visualize it or whatever it is that you need at the time. So thank you for describing that a little bit. And my question is, I'm sure you've heard of Bach medicines, the essence oils, and I know there's a lot of different essences out there and everything, but I'm talking about the Bach medicines because they are specifically plant I think they're plant medicine. Is that sort of is that a plant medicine? Is that it going away, or is it more of an essence and more of a sort of a remedy as opposed to plant medicine?
Well, I would say that it's both plant medicine and a remedy. Absolutely. I think any time that we're taking plant medicine or any kind of plant, like whether it's drinking tea, right? Like anything like that, if we're doing it with intention, then it's plant medicine. So I used to use rescue remedy for my kids and even my cat when I got my dog, and my cat was very upset about it, and it works very well. Yeah.
Oh, I love rescue remedy. It's got me through a few tight spots. And I'm actually using it now because I'm in the process of selling my house and moving to South Africa from the UK. So a lot of stress happening. So rescue remedy, and I've used it on my dogs as well when fireworks would go off. So yeah, that's a really powerful medicine to have. Now, in your bio, there was tea witch was mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about what it is? What is a tea witch? It's not a phrase that I've heard before, so I'd love to know what it is.
Sure, thank you. So I call myself a tea witch, and it is for fun. It is absolutely for fun. I love being in the energy of play. And so this started for me when I moved to Quadra Island. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest of British Columbia, and this is a haven for medicinal plants. And so I arrived here and I thought, well, what does this plant do? And what does that plant do? And I looked around and I was so curious what all these plants do. And so I picked up a book, and which turned into a library eventually. And I started to learn about the different plants. And I started to make remedies for my friends and family. And then I started to sell, to the community. And now I sell organic herbal tea. I'm actually just relaunching it under a new name called Soulful Sips. And I call myself a tea witch because I make these teas, and they're more than for, the symptoms. So for instance, I have a sleep tea, right? And yes, all of the herbs in it help with sleep and relaxation. But I like to focus more on the energetics of the tea and the herbs in the blends that I'm making, more than, oh, this is good for this, that is good for that. So another one of my most popular tea blends, it was called the grounding blend, is now called Anchor and Alchemy. And it's only 3 herbs. It's holy basil, rose, and elderflower. And those 3 herbs together, it really does feel like magic. It feels like I'm a witch and I'm creating this potion and I'm putting it out there for people. And these 3 herbs together, they are mindfulness, they are heart opening, and they are connection to spirit. And I've seen this tea in particular help so many people through heartache, through job loss, through interviews, through, integration of healing journeys, all of that, all of that. Now, all of my blends of tea come paired with a ritual track. So you can make yourself a cup of tea, and while you're drinking it, you can listen to the ritual track, which talks about the herbs and the intention of the tea, and it becomes this whole ritual. So that's why I call myself a tea witch.
It's so interesting because this was also one of the things that really stood out to me in your bio. It was this kind of bringing in as you were describing it, this nature. Because interestingly, I come from the Czech Republic, and we are an interesting nation, at least the way I grew up, that we're probably the most atheist country that you will find in the world, and yet obviously we've been through all the, we are technically a Christian country, or there's a little bit of that or whatever, but we have very interesting, strong pagan roots that, at least where I grew up, I was raised on kind of paying attention to, the nature, to the clouds, to the stars, to the rivers. We have so many folk tales about the goddess of anything and everything, of the spirits. And I grew up, learning about nature and foraging and picking up all sorts of herbs and learning legends and giving gifts to these little creatures and spirits and learning. And part of it is the belief for me when you were talking about, that herbal tea is not just a tea, and yes, there's some, beautiful science showing that this herb is good for this and this herb is for this. But I love that you had this little ceremony, that it's not just, I'm going to drink a tea, but it's this whole habit. And for me, it's also the mindset and belief that as part of this habit, I'm really embracing the belief that not only rationally I know that tea is good for me, but the more I really pay attention to it, the more I sit with it, the more I listen to, the voices and the narration and the stories, the more I believe that it's going to work. And part of it, for me, is the power of belief that, you know, we're touching onto maybe the scientific realm of where we now have more and more proof that placebo works, and we're learning how placebo works and how even if we know it's placebo, it still works if we choose to believe. So I love that the way you described your teas and how you approach teas, it really gives me this kind of a strong sense of encouraging people to believe in the power of the tea and in the power of the herbs, and it's so beautiful for me to hear.
Thank you. I think it's really funny when people say things like, "Oh, it's all in your head." It's like, yeah, it's all in my head. All of it is in all of our heads. Belief is all that matters.
I love how you describe the whole tea process, and one of the, well, two sort of things came into my mind is the Japanese or the Chinese, it's just gone out of my head, but one of these Asian cultures, they have these tea ceremonies where it's a whole process of pouring the tea, having, you know, laying it out, making the tea, seeping it, pouring it, giving it. It's not just you pour it and then people tell you actually give the tea, and it's a whole process. It's not a 5-minute thing. It can be a good couple of hours with this tea ceremony, and it's almost really savoring the process of making the tea, but then also savoring the process of consuming the tea. And when you spoke about, you know, is combining these ingredients and then sitting and enjoying your tea and really listening to the CD that you provide, or the narration that you provide, is really, as Lenka said, just embracing it and starting to bring in the belief, because you focused on it. And when you focus on something, then there's the manifestation. So it's a great process. But also what came to mind is the shamanic ways, you know, whether it's pagan shamanic, Irish shamanic, or American shamanic, whichever one it is, it's also about really listening to what the plant is saying to you, or bringing out in you, in your emotions, and, you know, using tea or even just eating the plant, because some plants you can just eat. It's really embracing, what is this plant bringing to me? What am I needing from this? Why this plant and not that plant? And what am I needing? And one of the things you mentioned earlier was, you know, the rose. And sometimes, why am I drawn to the rose? Why do I want to just, you know, shove it in my face and sniff the hell out of it? Whereas maybe yesterday, the rose didn't appeal to me. I didn't want to go that route. And one thing that really saddens me in a way is that a lot of these roses don't have the aroma anymore. The aroma and the thorns have been sort of modified out of them so that you don't get that aroma. And when you walk, I remember as a child, we walked past these roses and it's like, whoa, this smell, and the different smells from the different roses, because one rose does not smell the same as a second. And now you've lost that in plants, you know, jasmine. And I don't know all the names of plants, but a lot of these plants that used to have a really powerful aroma doesn't have it anymore. So yeah, they look pretty, but they've lost almost that power of scent. And also stocks here in the UK, tall plants, you get night stocks, you know, in the evening, you're sitting outside and you just get this whiff of something, and even they losing their scent. That's got to have some impact on us as humans, because we're not getting the natural power of the plant, even if it's not intentional. Like I said, you're just walking down the road, there's a beautiful rose bush, and you just have that whiff of that rose that can give you something, whereas now we don't have that, and you can even go up to it and sniff it, and there's no scent at all. I'm sure that's having an impact on us because we're not getting those same scents, as in scent, and yet we're getting bombarded with scents from chemicals. You know, the not all, but some of the essences, or our washing powder, or our soaps and our shampoo, they all crammed with scents, but we're not getting the natural scents. So that's got to have some impact on us as humans.
Yes, yes, I believe that it does. And I think the thing to think about here, what I know about this is that we live in a plastic world, right? We live in a world where there's a lot of falsehood. There are a lot of fake everything, right? And especially in the spiritual world right now, there's a lot of fake spirituality. It's a commodity, right? And same with plant medicine, same with everything. We have a choice, right? We have the choice to get the quick fix and to go get the thing that's plastic and false and, cloned, that kind of thing. Or we have the choice to use our bodies as a compass and a tool and to feel into what resonates, right? And the rose that is natural and is the medicine that you need will resonate. Right. And that's how you know that that's the way to go. But we have to go looking for it because it's no longer at our doorsteps. It's no longer in our backyards. For most of us, I am so privileged that it still is. But for most of the world, it's not. And we have to go and seek it and really be able to discern for ourselves what is true and what is false. And I think that goes with everything, roses included. And I do love talking about Rose so much. I mean, she's such an amazing teacher. She teaches us to soften and to open, right? She teaches us that we can stay in a closed bud if we want to, but it would deny our purpose, right? The purpose of a rose is to open, right? And to receive and to give that beautiful smell and to attract the bees and all of these things. And so every single plant has the medicine of their essence and also the medicine of their spirit and the teachings of who they are. And what I love even more is that a rose will never try to be a daisy, and a daisy will never try to be a rose. And I think there's beautiful teachings there too, especially for empaths and sensitive people, right? As a sensitive person, I will never be that tough girl, right? And I don't have to be because there's enough space in the world for me to be who I am, and there's enough space in the world for the tough girl to be who she is too, and both of us are needed.
It's a powerful lesson is the spirit of the plants, and we're not just talking about flowers. I mean, I know we've mentioned flowers, but even trees have a spirit. I mean, if you just think about an oak tree, I mean, the wisdom that an oak tree has, because they are, I mean, here in the UK, you get oaks that are, I think, 1,000 years old. I mean, they've seen history and they've been there. You get elm trees, you get different trees in different parts of the world that are very native to it. And one of my favorite trees growing up in South Africa is the baobab tree, because it's the mythology behind it is that God got angry, so he pulled the tree out and he shoved it in. And I can't remember why he got angry, but he put the tree upside down. And if you look at a baobab tree, it looks like a tree that's been turned upside down, and it's just the roots that come out. And they're huge. You can get 20, 30 people with their arms out in a circle, and you still can't, circumnavigate the trunk of the tree. And just think of the spirit in that tree compared to like an oak tree who's been in the UK or Europe, who has these long winters, who, very different history, very different atmosphere, very different energies, and you would get different beings or different spirits from these two different trees. And the willow tree that looks like water, it just flows. When you see a willow tree, it's always got leaves in the water, and they look so different and they look so unique. And I think they've also got to be part of the plant medicine. So we're not just talking about, pretty flowers like the rose or the daisy, but we also talk about the trees. I mean, they're also part of plants and mushrooms as well. I mean, sometimes you look at mushrooms and you're like, what the hell happened to you? You've got a top that only a mother could love. You look really ugly. And then you get the really pretty ones. I love the red ones with the white on it, yeah, poisonous, but they look gorgeous. You just want to picture little gnomes sitting underneath or little fairies. You can almost have a whole, imagination story going in these mushrooms. But it's just what can they give to us? And I'm not recommending eating those mushrooms with the red. I think they're toadstools is the right name. But we can still get something from them just by seeing them, by just being in their presence. And I think we've had a lot of guests talking about the power of nature and going out into nature and listening. But this is almost taking it to the next level, is really seeing what am I getting from this branch or this plant? What is it teaching me or showing me or guiding me? Because it's not always recommended to go up to a plant and, sniff it or touch it, because some plants are really poisonous, and unless you know what you're doing, but it doesn't mean you can't get something from it. And I'm really fascinated with mushrooms and toadstools. And here in the UK, there's certain areas when you've had a really wet summer, you get some amazing ones. I mean, some of them look like flying saucers and all sorts. But you're still getting something from that. So I'd love if you could just maybe help our listeners to find a way that going to nature, go for a walk is great, but how can they almost get more from it? That extra, almost the plant medicine just by being in the vicinity.
Amazing. I love it so much. So absolutely. And I love trees, and I love that you're touching on trees, because trees are so wise. We can get a lot of wisdom from trees, and I do. I get my best advice from trees. So what I like to do here, and again, I'm very privileged to live in a place with tons and tons and tons of trees and tons and tons and tons of nature. So my own personal practice is to go out onto a trail, and I find a tree that calls to me, and I will go up to the tree and put my hands on the trunk and just let myself open and connect with the tree. Like, can I feel, the essence of the tree? Can I allow the tree to pull from me what is no longer needed to be in my body? Because trees are amazing at transmuting energies, like really, really, really amazing. They'll pull it out of you and they'll ground it for you into the earth. And we don't have to know how to do this. They do this naturally if we allow them to. We only have to be open to it. That's it. We only have to be open to it. It doesn't take any special talent, right? So another thing that I'll do is when I'm walking in the forest, I'll just ask the trees, I'll ask the forest, what is it that I need to know? And oftentimes a knowing will drop in. And again, this isn't a special talent, right? We all have a higher wisdom. We just have to be open to it. And when we're out in nature surrounded by trees, we are more expanded. We have this freshness. We have this spirit around us that helps to amplify our higher knowing. And so we just ask. And I honestly do get my best advice from trees. And the best part about that is it's an embodied knowing that comes in. So for example, one of the first things that the forest told me was be one. I mean, that sounds so simple and so straightforward. And like, what does that even mean? But the words fail the meaning and the feeling of it, because it was an embodied sense of what does it actually mean to be one. The trees have also taught me to slow down. They said, go slow. And I understood from that exactly what it meant. It meant to slow down enough, because just as we were talking about earlier about how love is all around us, we are literally seeping in it. Like, it is in the air, it is in everything around us. But if we're going too fast, we won't receive it. When we take the time to slow down and breathe and just be and just let ourselves sink into the moment, it's like the love can just trickle in. It can percolate in, like percolate our pores, enter our body. And so the trees have this amazing wisdom and this amazing ability to do this. And we don't need any talent. So for those listeners who are not able to go into the forest, right? They don't have access to this kind of nature that I do. I have created a nature meditation track and it comes with one of my teas, but it's also available for free on my website. And it actually walks through this exact ritual where you go into a meditative state and I guide you to connect with a tree and to release in that way and to imagine that you are a tree too. That's a great practice to do. Imagine you are a tree and how does a tree circulate, very slowly. So it's a beautiful meditation for those who don't necessarily have the access that I do.
Thank you for sharing that. And we'll put that link to your website on in the description so that people can access it, because it is really powerful to connect. And I mean, we've had guests talking about forest bathing and just finding, but this is almost taking it to the next step, the next level, and really starting to feel the energies and the spirits from, or the guidance from what trees can teach us. And as you said, there's so much wisdom there. If you picture, and I always talk about an oak tree because there's this tiny little acorn that you see, and then you look at that acorn and you look at the tree, and it's like, how did that happen? This tiny little acorn and this massive tree. And I've seen one, it's near Nottingham. I mean, they've had to put frames up because it's so old. But you see these trees, they're gnarly and they just look like, sometimes like little old men hunched over with a walking stick, but you can almost feel the years on them. They're not saplings. They are solid trees that have seen some amazing stuff and most probably some horrendous stuff as well, but you can almost feel that history coming off them, and it's really powerful. And yeah, I'm just really connected to an oak tree, and I just think they are the most amazing things, especially when you look at an acorn see this tree. So thank you for sharing that, and our listeners can really get that meditation to help them to just find a place. And people are connected to different trees. Just because I'm connected to an oak tree doesn't mean that you will be, but it's just maybe finding a plant or a tree that calls to you. And I know one of the things that the forest bathers were saying is, when you just look around, what tree's calling you? Mm-hmm. Which one do you feel drawn to walking towards? Because you can sometimes walk where there's a lot of trees, so not necessarily a massive forest, and it's like, wow, it's just slow down, and where are you being led to? Which one is sort of pulling you in and following it? So thank you for really sharing that and sharing that meditation for our listeners, because I think that can be a really beneficial, because not everybody connects with plants or flowers, but maybe a tree is more for them, or a flower or a herb or a bush or whatever, some plant, because they've been there forever and we've been connecting with them forever. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And so we ask you, Dana, can we please have your gold nuggets?
We have not talked about hypnosis yet, so that could perhaps be the gold nugget. Another thing that I work with is dreams and dream symbology. I mean, I would like to maybe share a little bit more about this idea of, having a witness and having a guide, because something that feels so powerful to me is, like, I was really suffering, I was really suffering for a very, very long time. And the woman who I went to, she took my hand, she reached back and she took my hand. She was suffering before she was a guide. She was suffering very badly. She almost didn't make it through this life, And so somebody reached back and took her hand and pulled her up, and she reached back and took my hand and pulled me up. And now I have the absolute honor, and I'm getting choked up, right? Like to reach back and take the hands of other people who are ready to step up and into themselves. And I think it's so powerful that this is the way that it works. And the more of us who step up and are willing to let somebody help, right? The more of us that step into our truth, the more of us there are to really create and contribute to that critical mass, right? That societal critical mass that is so needed in these times, right? Because we are sort of at this precipice right now. We're at this precipice right now, right? Where, I mean, all the crap that's going on in the world, we need more people in their truth, more people shining their light to be beacons for other people so that we can create the critical mass that's needed to change the world into what we want to see, to create the harmonic future and the balance that we want to see. I think that's a crucial piece.
Thank you so much. And that is a very powerful gold nugget. It's, yes, is stepping into your truth and finding a way to be your truth and speak your truth. And as you said, like shine your light. So thank you so much. And this is something that you are obviously doing, is shining your light for those who you can take their hand and help them through the process. So thank you so much for that really powerful gold nuggets. For our listeners, if they are thinking, wow, I want to know more, I really find this conversation fascinating, I want to learn more, I want to connect with Dana, where can people find you to really connect with you and to be part of your circle, step into your circle?
There's a few ways that people can become part of my circle. So I'm on Instagram, Kosafi Wellness. I'm also on Facebook under Kosafi Wellness as well. And I do have a private Facebook group for empaths and sensitive people who are already on a path of healing and could maybe use a little bit of support. So those are 3 ways to be connected that way. I also have a newsletter. So if you go to my website, you can subscribe to my newsletter there. Or if you decide to participate in the meditation or any of the other free tools that I have on my website, then you will be subscribed to my newsletter, which I send something out once or twice a week. And then go to my website at akasafeed.com and send me an email. I'm only ever an email away. I love a conversation. This is deep, deep soul work, which requires a conversation. It's not something that people just jump into, right? So I'm here and I can answer questions and help you know if it's right for you, because it's not necessarily right for everybody, and help you know if I'm right for you, because I'm not right for everybody. So it is really important to have those conversations.
That's wonderful, and we'll make sure to add all the links into the description below, into the show notes, so people can easily click on their preference and find you and connect with you and learn more about you and from you. So thank you so much for today. It was wonderful. As this podcast is all about finding more life in one's life, we're always intrigued to figure out, what are the ways that people do to get more life in their life. I'm curious to know, what gives you life right now?
Oh my gosh, so many things. I am really in a space of joy and fun and play right now. And I mean, I have 2 children. They're 9 and 12, right? So they're very fun and give me a lot of life. I have a beautiful property here on Quadra Island. A beaver just moved into my pond, which is amazing and so much fun. And even the trees here, I have a cottonwood tree that I'm very connected with. Um, my friends and my partner, and like I would love to get out and do more of my hobbies, which I still don't feel like there's, necessarily enough space for, but I love scuba diving and I hike nearly every single day. Dancing, like all of those things, right? The more fun we have, the more fun we get to have, like it's just a matter of choosing it. So I think it's really important to step out of this idea of like being productive and working hard all the time, because we do only have one life. So let's do some playing.
Really touched on that, is the fun and play, and that is so important. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your time and energy with us. I mean, we are late afternoon, you are early morning, so thank you. It's the wonders of technology But we really appreciate your wisdom and your guidance and your enthusiasm. Because anybody who's watching this video will see your enthusiasm and your smile as you're speaking. So thank you so much. And for sharing about plant medicine, because this is something we've not delved into in this podcast. So it's really wonderful to bring a new topic into our repertoire of guests that we've had, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And of course, your beautiful gold nugget that you shared with us. And for our listeners, what have you got from this conversation? This was a different conversation to what we normally have, and we would love to know your thoughts. Do you have a plant or a flower or a tree that you feel drawn to more? We would love to know. Have you heard of plant medicine, or have you experienced plant medicine? Again, Lenka and I would love to know. And even aha moments or your thoughts on this episode, please do share with us in the comments below. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.